Fiza is a graduate of Met. She is the vice chair of the BU Board of Trustees. She's the founder of Impact 2040, a strategic consulting firm focused on early stage companies. She's been the board member for 12 public companies. She's formerly a partner in management consulting at Deloitte. And she's the sponsor of Innovation Pathway, which is our signature program at the Build Up supporting entrepreneurs. So Cynthia.
And the last thing you mentioned is the thing that I am most proud of, because luckily enough, BU educated me and gave me a fabulous career, and now it's time that I pay back with philanthropy and with time. And my passion more than anything else is women entrepreneurs. You don't need to hear any more about me, because the most important thing tonight is to get the stories, the fabulous, very authentic and personal stories out of these three wonderful women. I'm going to start at the end. Shironda White, who is the co-founder and CEO of Cupcake Therapy, and originally got a MBA at Questrom and thought she'd be doing something totally different than this. She did not go to the school of Met that has the gastronomy program. Then we have an engineering graduate who, again, doing something a little different about that. Fiza Shaukat, you have to forgive me with the name, who I first met at the very beginning with a number of different co-founders and at least 2 pivots ago, but now she's the CEO of Patient First, and the guys fell to the wayside. One of the things that you are going to figure out is that entrepreneurship can happen at any point in your overall career. It may not be the thing that you do when you graduate, and it may be the thing that you do while you are in a company called entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship is really tied to innovation. Thinking about that, innovating when you are in a company, and we have one of the best examples here, Holly St. Clair, who is a CAS graduate, who never thought we would look at her and say, she's a STEM woman, she's an IT woman, not her pathway. So I'm going to ask each one of them to introduce themselves relative to where they thought they would build their career and where they are today. Shironda, you want to get started with, my MBA didn't train me for recipes.
I did not go to business school to make cupcakes. Can you hear me now? Okay, that's better. So my name is Shironda White. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cupcake Therapy, which is a premium nut-free, allergy-friendly cupcake company. We have over 100 options of regular, vegan, gluten-free, no sugar added, and soy-free cupcakes. So when I went to business school, initially it was because I wanted to go into social impact consulting. I knew that I wanted to work with Bridgespan. I interned after my first year with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which was their largest client. Bridgespan does not do summer internships. So I said, who's their largest client? That's what I want to intern with. So I pursued it, I got it, I got an internship with the Gates Foundation. It was an amazing experience. It was the perfect internship for somebody else. I was bored out of my mind. I came back and said, I do not want to do social impact consulting. This could not be my life. I would be so bored. And so I called a friend who I've been volunteering with to do actually fundraising for students in college. And I said, let's turn this into a business. And she said, okay. And so we started CauseEDU, which is actually a platform that helps students and their families to better understand the true cost of college and how to pay for it. We started during my second year at Questrom. I started the Ventures class, and that's how we launched. We raised money. We raised over $100,000 of non-dilutive funding. It was great. It was wonderful. The pandemic hit, and business completely stopped because we were working with schools. And when schools shut down and they were sending, their students home and everybody went online, they didn't have time to really keep up with us. And so
now I'm going to ask you to wait,
yes,
because it's going to come up when we talk about the aha moment.
Oh,
I don't want to spoil the story.
Okay.
Fiza, So we have serial entrepreneur, now we have entrepreneur with pivot, pivot, pivot.
Exactly. Hi everybody, my name is Fiza Shaukat and I am the CEO and co-founder for PatientFirst.ai. We are building a digital health card, just like your bank card, to connect patients to physician pharmacies and labs in developing countries. So what my career started off being a biomedical engineer right over here across the corner, spent a lot of time across CVS and over here. And then basically after I graduated, I got a consulting job at Accenture, like most engineers do. I was working in the pharmaceutical and the healthcare industry here for 3.5 years, and I realized it's not what I want to do or continue doing. I was really interested in global health, so started doing a few projects on the side with Harvard Medical School in Peru, Africa, and extended those efforts. And thought I wanted to go and pursue my public health degree at Harvard and weaving social impact. And between that time, COVID hit, and there was a personal story which I'll talk about. My grandmother back home.
I'm going to ask you to hold that in a minute too, because we're going to go into the aha moments.
And that's what transitioned me into entrepreneurship, and never looked back to global health consulting then.
Okay, Holly, starting a number of years ago at CAS, and paint the picture of you as an undergrad and what you thought you were going to do and where you started.
Okay, so hello everyone, by the way. And fantastic energy in this room. So nice to be in a room full of women who are looking at the world, trying to figure out how to make an impact and know that they can do it. It's fantastic. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. So I went to Boston University. I'm from Ohio. I went to Boston University because I wanted to go to the city, and I loved figuring out how they worked. And I really wanted to protect the environment. And so I had an advisor at College of Liberal Arts named Cutler Cleveland. I don't know if he's still here. He told me to focus on my soft skills, not my hard skills, which at that point meant don't do policy bullet points, focus on doing math, science, technology, GIS, so on. I found out I was really good at that stuff. I wasn't good at it in high school, but I was really good at it. It's like, okay, this makes some sense. So then I went to Tufts to get my master's degree in urban and environmental policy, and then I started to work for the city of Boston in the research department, the Department of Neighborhood Development, and looked at data and foreclosure data and how neighborhoods work. Then I went to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council and became a regional planner and did population and employment projections around transportation planning, go into more detail. Then ultimately, when the state went to open their first data office, they asked me to head it up, as well as then when they went to open their first digital office to figure out how to deliver better government services through digital media, they asked me to be the first chief digital officer. And then now I've pivoted to what I call the dark side, no offense to anybody, which is I'm now my first private sector job at 49. And I'm at Sasaki, which is an international design firm, being their chief technology officer. So.
And you are the I can do it woman, who anytime she sees a big problem and something that other people don't want to do, Holly's the one that goes in and says, I can do it, I can fix that, because she's the entrepreneur. Now, one of the things that we want to point out to you, again, is the circuitous path that most entrepreneurs go through. And what really makes a difference to a fundable, scalable business is when you are totally committed, and you don't know when that's exactly going to happen, because it's a lot of kismet, and it's what I call the aha moment. So Shironda had the aha moment, because remember, she thought she was pursuing this thing in education, and she has the pandemic baby. So let's talk about your aha moment that I asked you to save and your pandemic baby.
So I have a lot of allergies. Does anybody here have allergies? Food allergies? That's actually a pretty good number of us. So I have a lot of food allergies. The ones that could actually kill me would be nuts and avocados. And since we've been anaphylaxis, I've had a lot of reactions from like bakeries and restaurants in Boston. So I just stopped eating at bakeries. So I was vegan for a while, I was gluten-free for a while for health reasons. And so between that and being a foodie, I do not eat other people's food at all, because if it's gluten-free and vegan, it doesn't taste good, typically, right? And so I was baking for myself, for events and for gatherings with friends. And they would love what I was baking, and they would ask me to bake for them, and I would say, I don't bake, I do fintech. I'm not baking for you. You like this, that's great. If not, it's fine. And so during the pandemic, I was doing a lot of baking because I was bored and I had nothing else to do because our business was stalled. And so I just built a website, I put it up, and I told my friends, if you want to order, go ahead. If not, I understand. They started ordering, they started telling their friends who were ordering, and it just all of a sudden blew up and turned into this big monstrosity of a thing. And so in February of last year, we decided to launch. I called my mom. She actually lived in Atlanta at the time. She moved to, I say Boston, but she moved to North Providence, so she moved out here to help me. And we launched officially in February of last year. We were featured in Boston Magazine in May of last year under Where to Find the Best Cupcakes in Boston. We got a $25,000 grant from the Celtics and Vistaprint. It just all of a sudden turned into this thing, and I'm like, these are just cupcakes. Like, why are people so excited about cupcakes? And so within 12 months, we had a 6-figure business. It took Kazi to you a lot longer than that. And so I think at that point, it was kind of like, well, I guess we have an idea. I guess we have a business. Let's just go for it. And we had to turn it into a real business early just because of the fact that there are certain things you have to do legally when it comes to food. You can't just say, oh, let me go sell food. And so that was why we had to take the steps to turn it into a real business. And we just thought we'd try it, put some money into it, see what happens. If it fails, no big deal. And it did. So that's where we are now.
And you had your aha moment that this could be the ticket.
Yes.
This is financeable, scalable, and can make you into a tremendous CEO of a large business. One of her benchmarks is Ben & Jerry's. So, Fiza, you have a family story, and a lot of times the aha moment comes from a very personal thing that happens where you really can relate to it, and that helps fuel your passion, because entrepreneurs run through walls. There can be nothing that stops you, and you don't take no for an answer. So share the family story with us.
Yeah, so where I left off was back in 2020, I was working as a consultant. I looked at the healthcare landscape in the US, Africa, Peru, and also from Pakistan, where I'm originally from. So my grandmother was hospitalized during COVID started ramping up, and the doctors had lost all the paper-based medical records, and they actually ran all the tests in 3 weeks, and by the time they ran the tests, she passed away. And so my co-founder and I came in together, who's also my older brother. Basically, we were like, we have all this experience and expertise working in the US healthcare system. Why is all these countries develop all the systems so paper-based? Why are people in all these developing countries still passing away or do not have access to any of their health records? What can we do about it? And that is why we started to have brainstorming sessions, started to start thinking about it. And fun fact is that I came here at a pizza and pitch session at the Bill Lab back in 2020 in February, pitched my idea, and we won the New Venture competition 3 months later. And we were incubated in the Summer Accelerator, where we were the first COVID accelerator to take our idea from an ideation stage to actually doing market research, and then actually going back to Pakistan and launching the product with the physicians. And once we started sitting in clinics here and the physicians started to use it, and we started to get all that feedback from the patients of how much it was needed, that is when the aha moment came in. This was a need that was not just limited to my grandmother, it's actually a need that's needed much more in Pakistan and also all these other developing countries. Yeah.
Now for Holly, your story's a little different, but you very much have those entrepreneurial characteristics. In the corporate world, you can take a job, run a very large organization, and make the trains run on time. Do a really good job year after year, driving the same functional organization. Or you can be the I can do it woman. Other people haven't done it. I can do it. Tell us what the aha moment was when you realized you weren't going to be the one to just sit there and make the trains run on time.
So just a couple quick things. One is, I don't think I ever knew I was having an aha moment when I was actually having it. So I did want to be careful that we don't hold it up as this thing that the golden child.
In retrospect, yeah.
I feel like it happens in retrospect. I could be wrong. This is the only ones that I've experienced. And I've had multiple throughout my life, so you get multiple chances, don't worry. But the first one was when I was at Tufts. I had a practical project where we worked with the Chelsea Action Group, which is a group of first generation or new immigrant mothers out in Chelsea, along the Chelsea Creek, which is where it's between East Boston and Chelsea. It's where Chelsea Creek is. I don't know if you guys know where the big salt pile is by the Tobin Bridge. That is a neighborhood that's been polluted a lot. Classic environmental justice story. Well, I just wanted to make a map to show them both sides of the river, what the parcels were, and then figure out what laws are governing those parcels. Turns out no one had ever done that back in that time. Sounds like so old. Back in the day. And so I went to the city of Boston to try to get parcel data. And at that point, it hadn't been in a digital format that was easy to give someone. So they weren't giving me the data. They were refusing to give me the data. So basically, it was camping out and like ambushing administrators when they walked out of the building to try and ask them to get the data. What dawned on me at that point, my aha moment was, if I was a white, middle-class, relatively well-to-do woman with a lot of time on my hands, I can look at the data, how in the world would these women who had 2 jobs, multiple kids, you know, were just trying to make ends meet, when were they ever going to come camp out at City Hall to get that data? So that was my aha moment to start democratizing data.
Right. I would like you to tell the story because we're going to get into funding and being a woman looking for money, but tell the story, if you would please, that you shared with me, very personal, on one of the jobs where the guys had a pool about your success.
So, please don't tweet this out. So I
No names.
I work in data and technology. So the way I describe what I do is I'm a planner who specializes in data, information, and technology to help large organizations and the public make better decisions together. And often organizations have the data, or cities, or universities have the data, but the community groups or the citizens they work with do not. So there's already one of those power imbalances there. So I was brought to the state to start the first data office with my goal to democratize data and information and get it out there. And it was in the IT department that was being really created out of an old IT department. And under new leadership, but the guts of the organization were really people that had been there for years. And when I say people, I really actually mean men. And I found out that they had a pool. One of the guys who I became friends with said, "Do you know they have a pool on you about how long you're going to last at this job?" And I was like, "What? Like, I've been in public service my whole life." So I lasted 5 years there, but I've been in public service for over 25. So I don't know if they won or if I lost. I know I won, but they lost.
But you had the last laugh. And Fiza, you have a story. And we want to be authentic here and share with you some real life experiences because these women have persisted. Go ahead, tell your story.
Yeah. My funding, I started off fundraising last year for pre-CVAC. It took double the amount of time, I would say. Number one, being a female founder, but then also raising money for developing countries, right? Both can be very different for the US culture over here. So my other co-founder is my brother, and a lot of times when I would feel like I'm getting feedback from the investors saying that, you know, what if there's a time that you have to replace as a CEO and your brother becomes the CEO, right? Things like that came up in conversations, and I would struggle and I would be like, maybe he needs to go and pitch, right? Maybe I need to change the strategy a little bit. But I think what really comes out is that you need to keep getting at it, and you find the people who trust you and support you during this journey. And we were able to fundraise at the end of December last year with the amount that we were looking for, and we were successful. So the entire, I think there are definitely a rough path that you go through while you're fundraising, and it is harder, but I think you overcome it with the determination that you have.
And saying no is one of the hardest things to do to money. Shironda, you have a story about that.
Yeah, I'll say no. So I've had to raise money for both CAUSE-EDU and Cupcake Therapy, and the experiences have been completely different. CAUSE-EDU is a for-profit with a social mission, and so for me, it was really my passion. And what that meant was we were not going to do anything that we felt jeopardized the integrity of the company. And so we had an investor that came up to us after a pitch competition once, and he said, "I want to invest in you." Now, as a woman, you mentioned the stats already, it's hard to get funding. So for someone just randomly to come up to you and say, "I want to fund you," that's like kind of a big deal. But it turned out there was another company in his portfolio that he wanted us to partner with. And Boston is small, so I won't go too many details, but this company does income share agreements. And I don't know if you know what those are, but basically what happens is you borrow a certain amount of money, and then when you graduate, you pay a percentage of your income back for a certain number of years. So what you pay back is not based on what you borrowed. If you don't make that much, you don't pay that much back. But if you make a lot, you pay back a lot of money, right? And so at the time, they were still really new. And so students hadn't graduated yet with income share agreements, start paying them back. So my thing was like, we can't co-sign on this, we can't endorse this because we don't even know what the impacts will be yet. It's still too new. And so we said no, or I said no, I say we, but I said no because we just didn't feel comfortable, I didn't feel comfortable partnering with them. And as a result of that, we didn't get funded from them. And my co-founders were, obviously they're not happy that I'm turning down money. We've been turned down more than we've made. So they, of course, were not happy with that. But the reality is, if we had gone to our constituents, which is like the demographic they were trying to reach, and said, you should do this, and then for some reason there became a problem or it failed, then that would destroy our reputation, really. And so we had to turn that money down.
And both of you are satisfied with that decision to say no. When it's the wrong thing to do, you have to have the internal fortitude.
I've never regretted any no. Never.
Right. Holly, you had men say no to you when you sent out resumes, yet you've had how many jobs and never sent out resumes for it?
Yeah, most of the jobs I've gotten from acquaintances or friends of friends or someone I met in business. But I've had 3 or 4 major jobs. But really, although men can be a real challenge, especially in the male-dominated field, they also can be your biggest advocates. I've had a number of women who've also been advocates, but really just because of the field I'm in for planning and technology, it's usually men over 50 who are white or of the middle class. And it's a real hodgepodge of people that are out there. But if you can find the right mentor or the right person to network with, they can really make a difference.
Yeah, and Fiza, you've got an advocate that really helped you in fundraising. So there's both the negatives about asking men for money and having those experiences, and there's real positives. And the word advocate comes up over and over again.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest advocates I had was I was taking a class at MIT at that point, and one of my professors, I never showed up to his class because I was in Pakistan at that time, but he really was interested in the work that I was doing in Pakistan on ground. And so he kept mentoring me. Each time I would message, would get on a call, hear my pitch again and again. And when I came back in Boston in last year, September, October, I kept pitching. November, I got to him and I was like, this is not going well. I think you have to ramp down to the business in Pakistan. We just have to shut it down. And in November mid, I called him and I was like, he was like, yeah, you're burning a lot of your own cash, so my advice is ramp down, but keep fundraising, don't stop it. And I was like, okay, if things don't work until December, this is it, right? I gave it my best, and that's all. But he kept persisting, like, okay, keep fundraising. And this one VC from the Boston area had never invested in the developing country, let alone Pakistan. When I went to pitch to them, he knew someone over there and wrote an email to them before I went in and pitched about how I'd be working on this venture, how he saw me, and he became an advocate for each one of the VCs that I would go to and email them. And that it was his support and his saying that keep doing it, that before the end of December we got our funding. So you have those people at your back. If they see the potential in you as a leader, even if it's, and he has nothing to do with Pakistan, never being there, being and raised in the US. So if they see the potential in you, they can advocate for you, and that can really help you. Just need one person who is telling you that, I'm from the VC community, but I know that you'll keep working on it and you'll get through. And I think that's what helped me succeed.
Shironda, you have a bunch of tall guys who really believe in you.
It's funny because there are people who believe in us before we even knew we had a business. When it came to Cause EDU, it was people who really had a passion for helping students, and they would jump in and they would make introductions. There was a woman I met. She was actually so we placed second in the new venture competition in 2018, I think it it was. And there was a woman who, I don't even remember her name at this point, I'm drawing a blank, but she was one of the judges for the second round. And she connected with me afterwards, and she made so many introductions for me. There was actually some sort of like angel investor event that was going on in Boston, and she invited me, and I was one of only 2 entrepreneurs there. And I mean, just people who really just opened doors, especially at BU, but just in general, people who opened doors, men and women, who have just said, I want to introduce you to this person, I want to introduce you to that person, and who really made connections. Even now, our real estate attorney, he's been amazing in terms of making introductions of potential funders, of potential places that we can really go for partnerships. And so you'll find help, you'll find people who are willing to really come alongside you, even when you don't expect it.
But I want to brag a little bit that you have the Boston Celtics.
Yes. And they've been amazing. I mean, it wasn't even, so we won a check for, it was the Power Forward grant. There were 3 cycles. It's a $25,000 grant, but it also comes with, I think it's $2,000 worth of marketing assistance from Vistaprint, and apparently there's a lot more to it than that. And so we received the grant. We found out in January that we received the grant. We were on the Jumbotron, the Celtics game. Now they forget that we are small businesses. And so they say, surprise, you're on WGBH and you're on Channel 7. And it's like we got flooded and our website almost crashed and we had all these orders. And I'm like, what happened? And then I found out we were all on the news. And so a heads up would have been nice. But I mean, this entire year has been amazing. Our revenue has increased significantly just because they've really pushed us forward. It's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing.
And you, both of you, are tremendous CEOs, but you're doing something that you never thought you would do, and that is working with a family member. Yes. So I'd like you to talk a little bit. Shironda is with her mother, Fiza with her brother. Fiza, why don't you talk about your experience, the pros and cons. You never know when you're going to work with a family member.
Hopefully it's not going out of this room. Not here.
What's said at Innovate stays in Innovate.
Even though it's being recorded.
Shoot. I'll be careful with my words. So the biggest pro, I think, like having your brother as a co-founder, I'll start the big ones first, is that you know the weaknesses and strengths of each other, right? It's very important as a co-founder, whoever you're planning to build your business with, know not only their personality, but also know technical skills, what they're good at, what they're bad at, what they need improvement in, so that, you know, when you guys go ahead with your venture, you guys can, you know, take on responsibilities, but you enjoy doing, right? At that point, it's not, you're learning as you're going through it already, so you want to, so he was more on the technical and strategy side, where I was more on the operations side and fundraising side. So I think we divided up our roles and responsibilities really nicely, which was a pro in the first case. I think the biggest con is that having a family member as a co-founder, you don't know when you need to draw the line, right? Because you might be communicating or having the same day, and you might be talking in the same tone that you do to your brother at home, right? And if you have a third member of the team, you need to understand, okay, the dynamics have changed. Or maybe if you have a younger brother who also graduated from BU, you're out for dinner, and you keep talking about your business. And he's like, please, can you stop now? It's my birthday dinner. Right? So things like that happen, and you have to give yourself a reality check. And your parents are super involved because they know what's happening. There's been a bad day. It's a bad day for both. And there's a good day, then you can see it coming together. So I think that's the con. Like, you know, you don't know where to draw that line. And sometimes you have to train yourself, which we have now because we've expanded our team a little bit now, so it's easier, but when it was just the two of us, it was harder. So I think that's the pros and cons. But yeah.
And having mom as a co-founder?
I feel so sorry for my mom. My mom is a PhD. She's a college professor, and I've got her baking cupcakes. I feel bad, but she agreed to do it. She offered to do it, so that makes me feel a little bit better. But actually, so with Cause EDU, my brother actually was our marketing person for a little while. He helped us get started and then moved on. I think the easiest thing for us though was when it's a family member, you know to extend grace. You know to assume positive intent. You know who they are, right? So you know that this is not someone who, if they mess up, it's not intentional. Like you just know. You know who they are. You know what their weaknesses are, like you said, and you know what to expect. with my mom, I actually do feel bad, to be honest, that like she's, up early. We started like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I feel bad because she's supposed to be like semi-retired and doing fun stuff, and instead she's helping me get another business. But it is what it is, right? And so I think the main benefit is that she knows me and she knows when to say, hey, you need to slow down. I have the ability to work and work and work and have tunnel vision and not come up for air. So she's the one saying, did you eat today? Did you, like, oh, not cupcakes, did you eat food? And so she gets me back into, oh, I need to live, right? So she's able to look at me and say, you need to relax, you need to stop. But also, like you're saying, between me and her talking business, and we do family dinner every Sunday, and we each take turns hosting, and we have to try to remember to not talk about business all the time on Sundays because my brother is looking at us like, could you please shut up? And so there's that. So we have to kind of let that go and get into family mode. But it really has been fun.
That is wonderful to hear. I'm going to just go on a mom tangent for a minute because I want to introduce somebody in the audience. The mom that is here with her daughter who is a BU student. Kimberly, can you stand up for a minute because you are a really special social impact entrepreneur, an engineering grad alum who lives part-time in Lebanon and in the United States. So started out as a farm girl from New Hampshire, and now she speaks Arabic and does beautiful things around the world. So when we break, I want to make sure that some of you talk to Kimberly Samaha with two daughters here.
Tia was looking at me when you were talking like, slow down, let's have a Sunday lunch without talking about something, so totally relating to all that you're saying. Thank you.
Thank you for standing up, Kimberly. I appreciate that. And any of you would appreciate spending some time and talking to her as well. But let's go back to what are the hurdles for you right now? And maybe, Holly, you can talk about what you want to do that we were just talking about in the conference room to try and move your company forward, because again, you're the I can do it.
There's a long list. But I think the one that where you start with, what you said, innovation? Yeah, so one of the things that I've always been interested in is how does innovation happen and why does it happen? And in this company, as I've seen in other companies, as well as in public sector organizations, there's sparks of innovation all over the place. The spark of innovation that doesn't actually lead to innovation. It leads to small beginning parts of it, and it can cost a lot of money and not actually go anywhere. And I see a lot of people, and I'll say, this is probably too sexist, but a lot of men tend to lead these organizations. They don't tend to do lasting change. This is what I saw in the public sector. So they jump in and have their sparky idea and then jump out, and then some of us have to pick up the pieces. So I think the idea that trying to figure out what the innovation pipeline is really important. And have a big funnel for ideas, figure out how to get all the sparks, going through some of the series of tests and gates to figure out how to go to the next step, the next phase. What is that next phase? More importantly, when do you stop innovating? When do you get rid of that product? When do you put it down? Maybe private sector has this figured out, but I haven't figured it out yet.
You will.
I will, just for this company. And so I think just understanding your process and being able to systematize it is really important as an entrepreneur or entrepreneur. Just thinking about how you can then utilize the same steps again in different places.
Talk about hurdles, Fiza?
So I think the biggest hurdle now is a long list. Like when you're at a pre-seed or like an early stage to expanding through, there are multiple challenges that you're facing through. One thing that we've done we've figured out product market fit, and it's all about scaling now. So scaling not only just the product in itself, but I think the biggest hurdle is the team and the culture, right? So we are a small team based in Boston right now, and there's a way that we communicate. It's open style. It's everybody's communicating about sales, operations, technology that we're building. But as we scale in a different country, I think the biggest hurdle is going to be transforming that same culture over there, but with different people, right? So I'm going back to Pakistan to hire sales and operations people, but you want to make sure that you have the same innovative, collaborative people coming onto the team that are going to scale. So I think scaling culture as you scale your team is very important, and I really hope that we're able to do that and like basically transform the same culture from here in Pakistan, and I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle coming ahead.
Shironda, I want to make sure that everybody knows, as you're talking about your hurdles, of all of those people ordering cupcakes after you did the advertisement. I'm going to add to that problem. Everybody, you should all know that she gives BU students discounts. Don't order all at once, but now talk about the hurdle of the peaks and valleys of the orders, but really the hurdles of scaling the business that you have so that you are the Shironda and Mom instead of Ben and Jerry.
Well, so our biggest hurdle really is our capacity. The reality is right now we're at capacity. We just get booked so quickly, and there are so many people. I mean, when it comes to schools that are nut-free zones or corporations who are saying we need, desserts for people who are gluten-free and vegan and diabetic and regular, all of this stuff, right? So they come to us because they know they have options, and so we get massive, orders. But then we also need to take care of these kids with allergies, right, who just want half a dozen cupcakes for their birthday party. And so just trying to make sure that we're serving everybody, and that we're able to meet capacity demand, and we're not able to right now. And so we're trying to find space. We are negotiating a lease. This is our second lease that we've tried to negotiate, and it's hard being taken seriously when you look the way that we do. And so, I mean, just the reality is it's a challenge. We have a great lawyer. He's expensive though, very expensive. And so the biggest hurdle is getting over this hump of being in a room with these men who are looking at us and not taking us seriously and giving us these like bogus leases, and we're saying, no, we have a real lawyer and none of this makes any sense, and these are the changes that we're making. And so that's the biggest hurdle that we have, because until we can get that straightened out, we're turning away a significant amount of business. The second one has to do with IP. We picked a name that is very popular apparently, and so people tell you protect your IP, they don't tell you how expensive that is. And so we have an IP attorney.
IP is intellectual property.
Yes, we have an IP attorney, and she is not cheap either. And so defending a trademark, it's not just about paying $200 to trademark your name, it's about paying a lawyer every time someone is violating your trademark. And you're having to go after them. It gets very expensive, and so we've been spending a lot of money on that and cleaning up, what's online in terms of people using our name. And so those are the two biggest hurdles: the IP and space.
But what's the best thing about what you're doing right now, for you personally?
You know what? I think it's really when we get the emails or we get those phone calls from people who say, "I didn't even know this was like egg-free or nut-free or vegan or gluten-free. I just know I really like this." Or, "I have not been able to eat desserts for so long because everything I'm allergic to. I'm finally able to eat something that I like." It's just that, all of the work we do, we're working from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. and it's just getting those notes saying thank you.
Ollie, what's rewarding for you right now? What are you happy about?
Really interesting question for me right now, personally. I really like the innovation and data and strategy side more than I like the nuts and bolts IT side, so I'm actually struggling a little bit. I think what I enjoy the most is actually seeing the team that I'm supposed to be, my team that is data scientists and developers, work on infrastructure that I'm building. That's where I get a lot of gratification. So I think it is important to understand that not everything is always awesome, as you all sort of shared with me, but sometimes you get to be part of the product sort of sucky, so it's a good process.
Right. And Fiza, I know you're going to go back to Pakistan shortly, and you're always missing your home country and the family that's there. But right now, how are you feeling, and what's lighting up your day?
So we just launched our physician platform 4 weeks ago. Thank you so much. We've been getting product feedback from the physicians, and I think the one thing that, just like her, really helped us was that one of the physicians started using our product, and it just works like magic because they didn't have to change any behavior now. We spent a lot of time over the 1.5 years trying to make sure that the physicians would adapt to it, and finally there's a product in their hand which tells us that they're using it every day without any complaints. So that's been, I think, the very big highlight of our last 2-3 weeks. weeks that we've gotten the product in the hands of the physician that they use it.
So I want everybody to get their questions ready because we're one comment from each one of these wonderful panelists away from you asking your questions. Lightning round, advice for the group. Go ahead, Holly. You want to go last?
Let me go last.
All right, we'll go last. We'll freeform it.
Oh, okay. So two quick things. The first is, as women, we tend to overthink things. Don't do that. Just do it. Just throw stuff out there, see what sticks. Because if you overthink it and overthink it and overthink it, by the time you're convinced that it's a good idea, that opportunity is probably already gone. That's number one. The second is advice that my dad always used to give me. He passed a couple years ago, but it was like his solution to every dilemma: just hire somebody. There are some things that you will not know how to do. There are some things that Google or YouTube cannot teach you. You will mess up. If it's tax related, you might end up in jail. Just hire somebody for the things that you cannot do, because it's probably faster, easier, and cheaper than doing it yourself, messing it up, and having to hire someone to fix it later. So just hire somebody.
That was great. I don't know if my advice was good on that. I think just looking back at the BU career and also where I am today, I think find a career coach. Find an advisor, a professor, find someone in your community or the way that you work who understands you and is willing to support you. Not just emotionally support you, but professionally tell you that, and it's consistent throughout. It's not like, okay, that was my professor, that was my advisor for my BU years. Now that I've grown in, does not know what's, I had one, Dr. Beverly Brown, who was actually from the BU community, and I met her junior year of BU. And till date, every 6 months, I had a meeting with her where I was able to just talk about personally, but more often professionally. And a lot of times she was like, you're doing too much, you're going all over, you need to focus. You know, things like that, coming in from some person who's been there, even if not professionally, like she's not like, she doesn't have a startup of her own, but is able to relate to where you're coming from, can give you a lot of direction. So I would say start proud. Start engaging with the people, start talking to them, and I think it's finding a mentor and advisor is both ways. They need to understand you, you need to understand them. But start building that relationship. It'll take you a very long way.
I definitely agree with everything you guys said. So I'm going to take a slightly different route. It's read the technical documentation. Because half of what I've gotten in my life is just because I read the damn instructions. And I followed the steps. Because I can't tell you how many people think they do that, but they don't really do that. And there's a real gold nugget, have a repeatable recipe for success, and building on other successes. So just read the technical documentation.
I think, to use your term, we've had a lot of gold nuggets tonight, and that is great. I want to thank all of you. If you could give them a round of applause. What fabulous women to tell their stories and be authentic. So let's take some questions from the audience.
We're going to do about 1 or 2 questions because you will then go into smaller groups and ask even more questions. So burning questions, 1 or 2 for all the panelists. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Emily. I'm a freshman in business, and it's a 2-part question about your cupcake business. So, like, what are some of your maybe like 5-year just long-term goals for your cupcake business? And like, I know you said your like standard is Ben & Jerry's, which is also my favorite company because of their like CSV and like integrated values. So like for your business, how do you like, maybe do you like source sustainably or like from local farmers, or what are some examples of how you see them as like your farm?
Great, thank you. So 5 to 10 year goals, and then in terms of sustainability and sourcing. Let me start with the last question first, because I was just asked that the other day. It's actually very difficult because with us being a nut-free company, we prioritize buying from nut-free vendors over everything else. So for instance, Vermont nut-free chocolates, we buy from them because the chances of cross-contamination are significantly less if we're buying from them, if we're buying from Nielsen Massey, if we're buying from, just like for instance, Hershey, before the pandemic at least, they had a factory that was specific to, like it was completely nut-free. And so their cocoa powder and their standard size milk chocolate bars were all made in this facility that was nut-free. Everything else was made in their other facilities. And And so we prioritize nut-free companies to minimize any chance of cross-contamination. What that means is that we have very limited options in terms of who we can source from. And so that does impact our ability to do that. What we did though is we started to phase out using plastics. So we don't use plastic containers, we use paper boxes instead, and we just really make sure that we're very environmentally friendly in terms of what we're doing with our packaging. We were using compostable plastic or compostable containers at one point, but now it's just the paper. And so we just try to make sure that we're doing things like that we're buying locally. And so we're really pushing for that as much as we can, but we have to prioritize the country over everything else. In terms of 5 to 10 year goals, I guess this is a 10-year goal, but the goal overall is build, scale, sell. So we are building a company that is not just a cupcake company, but a nationally recognized premium, nut-free, allergy-friendly dessert brand. There's nothing out there that is allergy-friendly, that is nut-free, that tastes good. Our vegan cupcakes do not taste vegan, our gluten-free cupcakes do not taste gluten-free. That was our goal from day one. We don't test them on friends that are gluten-free or vegan, we test them on the people who are not. Because if they say it's good, then it's good. And so our goal is to start with the cupcakes, expand to other desserts. We are going to start a nut-free ice cream line as well. We already have a name for it. We're going to trademark it. And we're really just wanting to build it out and then eventually sell.
One more question. I saw some hands up before, all the way in the back. You got to stand up and talk loud.
We're all senior, graduating this May, and I was just wondering how do you get from this ideation stage to the taking actual actions, and maybe how do you overcome the fear of failure if you have faced one? Thank you.
So overcoming the fear of failure and then getting past ideation to implementation.
I can take over the first one. I think talking to your customers, going from ideation to anything is, the more you talk to your customers, the more you can identify that need, what they were like, what is this a problem for them, and how can you solve them. That's where you go from an ideation stage to actually saying, okay, this is something that they need. I think that's the benchmark that you need to talk to as many people as much you can so that you understand the market and the problem that you're solving. I think that's the only way to go out of ideation phase. Do you want to take over?
Holly, do you want to talk about how you have the self-confidence? You're the sage of the three. That's right, you did. And you've gone up against that group of men that had the pool, who didn't think you could do it, but you did. So talk a little bit about your advice and your own thinking of, I could do this.
Yeah, I know entrepreneurship sounds like a singular activity, but I've always had a group of people with me, whether it's directly my friends or people I've actually hired, or it's someone I've retained. But I think not doing it alone is really important. What's the second half of your question, though? I think I have my answer. Oh, well, in the public sector, there is no room for failure. People think that that's not true, but it really is true. Public opinion, there's no room for failure. So it's just high stakes, you just can fail. So just spend a lot of long hours. So, but I don't think that that's necessarily how innovation happens in other places. That's why I think there's not a lot of innovation in public sectors. You can't fail. Can I just kind of piggyback on that? So I did the Israel Field Seminar. For those of you who are in the MBA program, please do it. It's amazing. But there was this guy, and I don't remember who he was, but I remember him saying that the reason that Israel is considered, the innovation ecosystem is because of their culture. He said you don't get to be considered a loser just because you failed at something. So the idea of failure to them is not a bad thing. It's just part of life, right? You fail, you try something else, you fail, try again. That's just part of life. And I know for us that we applied to Mass Challenge in 2018. We were rejected. We applied to Mass Challenge in 2019. We were rejected. We applied to Mass Challenge FinTech in 2019, and we were rejected. And then we applied to Mass Challenge in 2020, and we got in, and we won. We won the $25,000 Quinn Impact Award, and we were also the Silver Award. If we stopped after that first try and said, oh, we failed, let's not try again, we wouldn't have gotten to the second round, the second time.
If we had failed the second time and then said we're not going to try again, we wouldn't have won. If we stopped after the third failure and said we're not going to try again, we would not have gotten to that fourth time. And so you can't be, and this is not just entrepreneurship, this is in life, you just can't be so scared of failure, because every single person in here is going to fail at something. The more you failed, that means the more you tried, right? If you never failed at anything, that means you've never tried anything. So just get out of the mindset that failure is bad and just try it, just go for it.
Yeah, just one more comment on that. I think the way that I think about it is similar to you, but it's different concerns. For us, the mantra was fail fast, fail small. You fail, like, do something small and test things, and then start to build on things that work. And if it doesn't work, then just keep moving fast.
Great. Thank you. Once again, you are a fabulous panel, and thanks for the candor. Back over to Lee.
So the next part will begin, and I just want to recognize that we do have the president of the Entrepreneurs Club here. Hi. Also led by a fabulous woman. Hello. All right, great. Thank you. So now the next portion, 2 rounds of smaller group speak networking. How this is going to work is speakers stay where you are at for now, while the students, you on your handout, there's a number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So group 1. Please go to those 2 tables, big round tables there. If you, hold on.